Okay, so when you think of alchemy, what comes to mind? Right, turning lead into gold. But what if I told you the oldest alchemical recipe we've ever found has nothing to do with getting rich? It's actually, well, it's a terrifying nightmare. And it's a recipe for transforming your soul.
Yeah, you heard that right. Gnawing off his flesh and vomiting his skin. This is a direct quote from the earliest alchemical text we have, written down almost 2,000 years ago in Greco-Roman Egypt. This isn't some guide to making a fortune. It's a coded message, a kind of spiritual blueprint hidden inside a seriously disturbing dream.
So the big question is, what if this absolute nightmare was actually a secret recipe for enlightenment? That's what we're going to do today. We're going to decode this bizarre vision and uncover the true, and honestly, pretty shocking purpose of ancient alchemy, all by following the clues left by its author, a guy named Zosimos of Panopolis.
Now, to really get this, you have to forget everything you think you know from movies. You know, the bubbling cauldrons and wizards with pointy hats. Zosimus lived in a time when science, magic, and religion were all kind of mixed together. For him, and for the people of his time, changing a metal wasn't separate from changing your soul. The two were totally intertwined.
All right, so the vision kicks off at an altar, and there a priest named Ion tells Zosimos this horrific story about, well, about himself. He says, "I have been dismembered with a sword. My bones and flesh have been burned until I learned by the transformation of the body to become a spirit." So Ion is explaining that this wasn't some horrible accident. Nope, it was a deliberate process. He had to endure this insane, violent destruction to turn his physical body into pure, non-physical spirit. And just when you think it can't get any weirder, the nightmare gets even darker. Zosimos looks into the altar, which is shaped like a bowl, and what he sees is just a scene of pure horror. He sees men being boiled alive in bubbling water. I mean, they're literally being burnt, but they're still alive, wailing in agony. But here's the crucial detail. These aren't just any waters. The original Greek text calls them divine and sulfurous. And get this, the Greek word for sulfur also means divine. So this isn't just torture, it's a kind of purification. And right there, the vision's central theme just snaps into focus. Suffering is the tool for change. Then this figure appears, a man of copper, and he's holding a tablet made of lead. He tells the men in the water to look up and open their mouths. And in that moment, it all clicks for Zosimos. This weird copper guy, he's the same priest, Aeon, the one who ate himself. He's both the victim of the sacrifice and the guy in charge of it. It's a single nature acting on itself. So what Zosimos is seeing here is this incredibly powerful allegory. Everything happening in this nightmare has a double meaning. It's a practical guide for working with metals, but it's also a spiritual map for the soul. Okay, so check out how this all connects. The gruesome vision is actually a recipe for a real chemical process. The man of copper holding a lead tablet, that represents a copper-lead alloy. The boiling in those divine or sulfurous waters, that's literally the process of heating that alloy with sulfur to change its color. Every single horrific act in the dream corresponds directly to a step in ancient metallurgy. It's wild. And this wasn't just random violence. It followed a very specific, four-stage process of color transformation. This was the hidden blueprint inside the nightmare. It starts with blackening, which is spiritual darkness, then whitening, the first purification, then yellowing, the dawn of enlightenment, and finally reddening, which represents unity with the divine. It's a journey from spiritual chaos to total union. This whole idea brings us right back to that self-eating priest, and it's perfectly captured by the Ouroboros. You know, the ancient symbol of a snake eating its own tail, which shows up all over Zosimos' texts. The vision is telling us that real transformation doesn't come from some outside force. It's a process of a single thing, a single nature, acting upon, destroying, and then rebirthing itself. But hold on, the vision isn't over yet. Now Zosimos tries to climb a set of 7 steps, which represent the 7 planets, but he just gets totally overwhelmed by confusion and despair. And every time he gets lost, a guide appears and shows him the way, by throwing himself into a fire and transforming. The man of copper shows up again and just launches himself into the flames. Then a new guide, the man of lead, does the exact same thing. And Zosimos finally gets it. To move up, to ascend, he has to cast out the lead, the heaviest, basest part of himself. So Zosimos finally makes it to the top. He's standing before a divine altar, and from the east a man approaches, and he's carrying a sword.
And then he's given this final, absolutely terrifying command. This time, he can't just be a spectator. He has to be the one to perform the sacrifice. It's his turn to take the sword.
So after all this horror, the self-cannibalism, the boiling, the burning, who is the final victim? What is the last thing that has to be destroyed to unlock true enlightenment?
The self. Zosimos realizes that he is the man he has to slay. The final obstacle isn't a base metal like lead or copper. It's the ego. It's the individual identity, that sense of I, that separates him from the divine.
And this whole journey just lays out the alchemical blueprint perfectly. For these first alchemists, enlightenment wasn't some gentle, peaceful awakening. No way. It was a violent, terrifying process of self-destruction and rebirth. A spiritual process that was a perfect mirror of the chemical one they were doing in their workshops.
So the true gold of alchemy was never metal. It was a transformed mind. And this ancient vision really leaves us with a pretty challenging idea. That maybe our greatest struggles, our deepest fears, maybe they aren't just obstacles. Maybe they're the raw, base lead just waiting for us to transform them into gold.